Hello everyone, praise God for another day. I think today what I'm going to talk about is the differences I see between stewardship of the land and quote-unquote conservation. So I think from a conservationist perspective, what we see is just leave the land to itself, let it be, and it'll take care of itself. It'll regenerate the damage basically. Usually what conservationists are trying to do is either reverse the damage or maintain nature as it were. But from the Bible we see that the world has been cursed, and so I don't think from a Christian perspective we can assume that we can just leave things alone and they'll take care of itself. Certainly there are places that may be overwhelming for us to steward and care for. I mean, if you were to try to do that in the Amazon jungle, it would be very difficult, just the sheer scope of it. But as far as like land in the United States where people have access to it and you can choose basically between stewarding a national forest or just letting it go, or taking land that is being actively cared for by a farmer or someone else, taking it away and just conserving it by letting it go back to wild isn't, I think, what God is calling us to do, because He's calling us to work the land and to steward what He's given us. So I think in that respect we should be looking more towards stewardship of all these places, and that can mean cutting trees down. It can mean changing the landscape, making additions, making subtractions, all sorts of things. Having animals on the land certainly is not poor stewardship. If we're bringing life-giving manure and agitation to the land, to the soil, to the plants and animals in that particular area, then it's actually building things up rather than letting things die and basically weeds taking over, things not being cared for. When a tree is dead in the forest, certainly it could be used for habitation and things like that, but also it could be cleared out and used for fuel or compost or any other number of things, and this would also benefit that land area. And even doing things like cutting a small amount of a forest will keep disease and pests at bay. If you just let everything go back to nature, then as we're seeing, so many forests are becoming old and ill. They're filled with trees that have diseases and just all sorts of issues. So I think when we're looking to steward something, that means we have to care for it, not just leave it alone and let, nature, quote unquote, take care of it because it's our job. So another thing I'm trying to do with my business is to bring that stewardship back to large areas of land that really are in need of it. And that's why I'm trying to do the reversing of desertification. So once a land becomes desert, it's relatively infertile, and that problem only grows, and it's actually bad for our entire country, because as the land mass of desert gets bigger and bigger, then arable land where we can grow food for ourselves and for animals becomes smaller and smaller. If we keep it at bay at the very least, then we won't lose anything else. If we start to reverse it, then we'll have more space for growing food, for basically the fertility of the land. So that's basically my spiel on that. We'll see how successful I can be 10, 20, 30 years from now, but my hope is to at least set the groundwork that maybe my son can take over and he'll make more progress than me. perfectly happy with that. I don't need the credit for this or to reach some sort of success that I'm hoping for. It can be generations after me, but to have that goal and to move towards that end, I think is what God's calling me to do, and what a lot of us, Christian or not, should be doing for our land. It doesn't make sense to just suck all of the profit we can out of the ground and then just leave it for dead. It's not a great legacy to leave to our children, our grandchildren, even generations beyond that. So if we're living by the golden rule, by what Jesus calls us to do, the second commandment of the new covenant, to treat our neighbors as ourselves, our neighbors can also be future generations, and I think it's an important consideration to have when looking to build something, do something, or to utilize the gifts and the resources God has given us. So I think that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. God bless.